So we are on 112B.1 right now. This is all about the skin. So if you actually look at your book, I'm going to, so I went ahead and did a little bit of looking at other books and Googling some of it. So if you read the facts about the skin, all right, does anybody know any fun facts about your skin? Anywhere?
It's the largest organ in the body.
None. It's double duty, right? It's an organ and system, so it does both. But on page 4, it says the average adult skin spans 21 yards. 21 yards, 21 square yards. So I looked that up because I was like, okay, so how big is 21 square yards? So I looked that up. 21 square yards is about 109 square feet, which is longer than a football field. And I'm like, that's a lot of skin. Okay, I believe that was a typo. I think it's supposed to be 22 square feet because I looked up a lot of other things and it came up to be about 22 square feet, which would fill a doorway, basically. Okay, so in this, we have about, in our skin, we have about 12 feet of nerves. We have about 650 sweat glands. We have about 100 oil glands. There's about 1,300 nerve endings. There's about 155 pressure endings. There's a bunch of heat and cold receptors and hair, and that's all just within a small area like a foot, durable, and it is simultaneously sensitive all at the same time. So it does require some special attention and care to maintain its health. Now, this is true, right? We get dry skin, we get oily skin, we get all these other things that go along with it. Okay, so it does apply, or we do need some extra stuff. So let me pull these slides up. Oh, whoops, wrong button, sorry. It's Monday, right? Kind of a Monday. Right here. Oh, apparently I didn't pull all of them up. Well, all right. 112B. It's Monday. Not all the way. Got them pulled up yet. Here we go. And then since yesterday was a holiday, it's going to feel like a weird week to me. So some of the terms you may have would be like dermatology, aesthetics, skin, integumentary. That's just within the first little portion of the book here. So come on, it's almost done downloading. Here we go. Anyone ever had any advice about their skin? Someone said, hey, try this, and it worked. No? A little bit too far. All right, so here we go. It is the largest organ of the body, right? It's also a system. Okay, the study of the skin, its structures, functions, diseases, and treatment is called dermatology. The doctor who performs this is called a dermatologist. Do you have any idea? This is how dumb I am sometimes. It took me like years to realize that anything that ended in the OLOGY meant study of. should have been a pretty obvious thing, I would think, or feel like I should have known that, but I did it. It took me a long time. So I always have to put that out there because I don't know if there's somebody else like me out there or not. Okay, so the industry of aesthetics is known as the process of cleaning, toning, moisturizing, protecting, and enhancing the skin. Okay, that's what estheticians do, right? Aesthetics esthetician. Okay, so our skin is a protection. It protects us from all the outside stuff that's trying to come in, right? And it's also an organ. And the system is called integumentary system. That's what our skin is. Okay, so except for the brain, the skin is the most complex organ. So our brain is the first most complex organ. The skin is second. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on within our skin. That's why it's so important that we take care of it correctly. Okay, so some of the functions that our skin does. You notice there's this acronym here called SHAPES. Okay, sensation. This is the 6 basic functions of our skin. Sensations. Heat regulation, absorption, protection, excretion, and secretion. Okay, so word shapes, functions of the skin. So I like on the test questions, it's going to say things like all of the following are functions of the skin except, right? So which one is not? So they'll have, maybe sensation, heat regulation, absorption, and color. They might have something else in there. So which one is not a function of the skin? So know what they are. So we start out with sensation. Ooh, nice sunburn. I've looked like that before. This doesn't feel very good. Okay, so we have our heat, we have our cold, touch, pain, pressure. Now, one thing about the sensations, a reaction to its sensation is known as a reflex. And I know that that is also on a test question, like what is a reflex? So you go to touch something and it's so hot and you jerk your hand away really fast. Yeah, the sensation on that, you felt the heat, told your brain to move your hand really quick. That's known as a reflex. The next one we have is heat regulation. This is sweating, right? It helps maintain your body's temperature, like your internal temperature and stuff like that. One time I saw on Mythbusters, you guys remember that show, Mythbusters, where they were trying to say it didn't sweat and they like imploded, which of course became a myth, but it was pretty funny as they were trying to reenact that. Absorption is another function of the skin. It allows certain substances to pass through the tissues, like we put on lotions, creams and oils and things like that. A certain amount of that is going to absorb. Not a lot, because if we absorbed like everything, we'd probably drown in the shower. So we don't absorb a lot, but it does allow certain things to absorb. Protection. Protects us from blows, falls, heat, cold, bacterial invasion, ultraviolet light, environmental pollutants, and all kinds of other things that we can think of. But it is our first line of defense for our internal organs. And then excretion. Excretion is sweat, salt, and waste from the body. Have you guys ever ate like a bunch of garlic or been next to someone who maybe drank a whole bunch the night before? You're going to smell that stuff, excreting out of their pores because their body is eliminating it. And then we have secretion. Secretion is oil. This is what sebum. Sebum is the technical term for the oil that our skin produces. Okay, it keeps it soft. It's like our body's lotion that's supposed to be naturally made. It is a protective barrier. It helps prevent bacteria from invading our skin. It just puts like that protective layer over the top of our skin. Now, some people, they have really oily skin, so they secrete a lot of oil, and some people don't have very much oil at all, and they don't secrete that much, and their skin sort of feels dry, but it serves as the protective barrier. And I'm talking skin all over, not just face, like all over your whole body. Okay, so we have this composition of our skin. How is our skin made? Oh, does anyone recall the pH that our skin should be? The pH level of what our skin should be? No, I thought you had it, Nick. Okay, so 4.5 to 5.5. That is what our skin pH should be. Okay, so what happens is the oil, the sebum, combines with the moisture that is excreted from our sweat glands, and it sort of mixes together to form that protective layer on our skin. That protective layer is called an acid mantle. Okay, this acid mantle is what prevents the bacteria from invading our skin, and which also helps keep our pH at our 4.5 to 5.5. Now, what happens is when we use higher pH soaps, we kind of wash that acid mantle off. And depending on how fast your body rate turns that over is going to depend on how oily or how dry your skin is. So that's something that you should keep in mind, and we'll go more into it when we get into the products, on the type of products that you use for your skin, because everybody's different. That's why there's so many products out there. Okay, so when we talk about this composition of the skin, we have the outermost layer. So the outer layer is what we see, right? That's called the epidermis. Okay, inside of that is our dermal layer. Okay, so the epidermis is also called cuticle or scarf skin. And what makes the epidermis is keratinized surface layers. So in other words, our keratin that makes our skin has gotten hard, and it comes, it comes out. Okay, the dermal layer is below. Does it come up in here? Yeah. Okay. There you go. There's your epidermis. There's what, 5 or 6 layers in our epidermis. So each one of these layers has different layers inside of it. So I want to say there's 5. I want to say there's 5 layers to our epidermis. Okay. There's no blood vessels in our epidermis. Have you ever cut yourself and not bled? Like a little paper cut or something, you feel it, it goes through those nerves, but you're not bleeding. Okay, that means you have not cut down to the dermis. You've only cut the epidermis. So if you don't bleed and your skin peels back, you're still in your epidermis, because there's nothing alive in those layers. Okay, there's no blood vessels. There's nothing there that, you have nerves, you're going to feel it, but you're not going to bleed. Okay, so consists of keratinocytes, which are the cells, right? The keratin cells, and the epithelial cells. Epithelial is a protective cell of skin. Okay. Oh, at 5 layers, it says right here, it consists of 5 layers. Or I was trying to run them off in my head, and I could have just read it. So the 5 layers of your epidermis. If you start on the very bottom, right above the dermis, right? We're going from the outside in. Okay, so we're going from what we can see and touch down to like our bones. So here we have our stratum basale, or stratum basal, or our basement layer. This is where the cells start to grow. Okay, our stratum spinosum is spiny, irregular shaped cells. Our stratum granulosum is a grain-like cell. Our stratum lucidum is transparent. This is only found on the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet. This is what gives us fingerprints and footprints, the stratum lucidum. And then you have your stratum corneum, which is the one that we touch. This is the one that we see. This is the one that we call our skin. It's hardened, or it's cornified. It's also known as a horny cell. I don't know why they call it that, but that's what they say. Okay. So what does this mean? This means that down in our dermis, oh, well, there we go, it starts down here. So down on our dermis is where everything's alive, okay, which I guess we're going to get to that dermis in a second. Down on the dermis is where everything's alive. As that happens, all the blood vessels and all of this stuff are making, you know, our cells are moving around, and this cells now are starting to push up and push their way out to become, you know, our skin. So our stratum basial, also known as our stratum geraniativum, you're probably going to hear the stratum geraniativum a lot more than you will the stratum basial or the Malgafan layer. Okay, it's going to be the stratum geranium. What this happens is this is where the cell growth occurs. They start to separate or divide through mitosis, and they're pushing their way up out to become skin. This is where you'll find your keratinocytes and your melanocytes. So this is where your color's coming from. This is also where the cells are splitting and dividing. As they push up, they're moving. So your melanocytes, right? This is what gives our skin color. Our melanocytes with spidery dendrites that extend into the keratinocytes and deliver melanosomes. Okay, that sounds like a foreign language, right? What that means is that on the end of these, they have these little nerve endings that have like feelers to them. And those feelers are going to go into your cells that are keratin cells, and they're going to deliver the color into your cells. So this is how we get the color that we are. This is what gives us the melanin. The melanin gives us protection from the sun, right? From the UV rays, from the sun of it. So when you get melanin, you have two types of pigmentation. You have basic melanin, which is what you're born with. And then you have hyperpigmentation, which just means that like you go out into the sun, so you get tan, right? Or you get too much sun or acne. Acne can also change the color of your skin a little bit. So from there, as it's pushing its way up, it's going to hit the stratum spinosum. Once we get into this stratum spinosum, what do we have here? Well, this is the cells that are kind of irregular shaped. They help distribute pigment to all the other cells. Okay. So what they're known as the spiny cells because they're irregular. So these spines, they kind of hold everything together. It's kind of like what, the glue of your skin?
Third and the fifth layer hang together.
They what?
The third and fifth layer are connected by that spiny layer.
Oh, so Miss Janie just said the third and the fifth layer are connected by that spiny layer right there. So that's why it holds it all together. Those spines kind of put it all together. Okay. It also says that in your book. Now your stratum granulosum is also known as your Grainy layer. What this is these cells, now they're starting to die out. They're not so much alive anymore. They're very keratinized. It's where they become from living into like the skin that we have. This is when it's getting ready to start to shed and produce new cells from the bottom, right? So we're constantly in this cycle of producing new cells. So this is where you're going to find keratinocytes. They're on their way to the surface, right? So keratization, so we have keratin, we have keratinocytes, we have keratosomes, we have keratinization. So all of it has keratin. It's all the protein that our skin is made out of, just cells and where it gets hardened. So when it's keratinizing or into keratinization, this is the process of which the living cells become dead cells. Okay, then they're pushed toward the surface. These keratinocytes, the sites are the cells, right? So these keratinocytes within this layer produce large quantities of protein. Okay, once the keratin is made, it forms fibers and the tightly interlocked cells fill with these fibers that are keratin. The newly produced cells move toward the surface and farther away from the stratum basial, and then they flatten out. Most will lose their water and die as keratinized cells are finally shed, right? So with the creation of the shedding, this is where, we get dead skin. It sheds off, and it's a constant cell turnover. It's a constant reproduction. As you get older, it slows down, but when you're young, it's constantly. I read somewhere one time that 90% of all household dust is dead skin cells. Remember those shows that they show you where they find all those creatures in your mattresses? A lot of them are dead skin. There's also a skin mite, like a little bug that lives on your skin. And its sole purpose is to eat your dead skin cells. And it eats your dead skin cells to the point where it explodes. Okay, so once it explodes on your skin, it's kind of gross, right? That's why you're supposed to wash your face every night before you go to bed. And then in the morning when you wake up, it's really mite. They are called a demodex or eyelash mite. Every adult human alive has a population living on them. They're transparent critters, and they're too small to see with the living eye. But if you were to magnify these things, like, I don't even know how many times, it went away. That's what that little creature looks like that lives on your skin. Is that not creepy? Yeah, that's it. So what this thing does, now that's like super magnified. If you want to look even more super magnified anyway, this would be like another version of it that's in super magnification mode there. But these are the little creatures that live on your skin, and the whole purpose of them is to eat your dead skin cells. So this is why it's important as your cell turnover goes that, we wash our face during the night, because after they eat so much, what do? They explode. They don't know when to stop. So they get new ones. So this stratum lucidum right here, this is the clear layer. This is our fingerprints and our footprints. So it's only found on our hands and on our feet. Okay, this reduces friction between the corneum and the granulosum, because our hands and our feet take a lot of friction every day, walking, using them, grabbing them, that type of thing. These have special cells in them. They are called squamous cells due to their flat, scale-like appearance. Okay, so this is what also makes the skin the thickest on the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet. And I know that that's a question. Where is your skin the thickest? Palms of the hand, soles of the feet. Okay, so that's what this does. Your stratum lucidum. And then you have your stratum corneum. Okay, this is the uppermost layer. This is what we touch. This is sometimes called the horny layer. It's the toughest layer of the epidermis. All of these keratin protein cells are being shed and replaced constantly from below. Okay, so unlike nails and hair, this keratin stays soft. That's why we have, cells. The squamous cells act in this layer as a protective layer for the layers below it. They protect the skin's moisture balance by acting as a barrier against moisture loss. So it's mixed with our acid mantle there. Should remain at a 4.5 to a 5.5. Since these skin cells are constantly being sloughed off, replacement cells, it's a continuous process. At the top of the layer are a few outer shells of dead epithelial cells called stratum disjunctum, this layer that is exfoliated during a skincare process. So as we age, sometimes this layer doesn't slough off like it's supposed to. Sometimes our oil glands will produce more oil. Sometimes they'll stop producing more oil. The cell turnover slows down as we age. And this is why, we look older, or sometimes we develop skin problems, is because some of these things don't always work like they're supposed to. Okay, but when you're young, like a baby, baby gets a little scratch, it's gone the next day. An 80-year-old gets a scratch and it takes 3 weeks to heal. And that's just all has to do with the process of this cell turnover slowing down. So this this last skin layer thing, I know that there's a thing on the homework that talks about making the layers of the skin. And I want to show you where that's at. So let me pull that up really fast here and share this with you on where you're going to find, if you want to make it like by a pattern that you can snack on when you're done. I'm going to show you where to find that right now. Okay, so when you go on your Pivot Point Lab and you go back to your home screen here, what you're going to want to do is go to the Learn tab. And you want to go all the way down to the bottom over here where it says North Adrian's Beauty College. Once you click on that, you're going to, first one is going to be a 3D view of the skin. Once we open this up, there we go. You're going to see a 3D view of the skin. So what this is going to tell you that you need is a jar, or you can put it in a Ziploc baggie or something like that. Kix cereal or something like Kix cereal, M&Ms, straight pretzels, sunflower seeds with no shell, white raisins, Chex corn cereal, and clear plastic wrap. If you think about the textures of all of these, each one of these is representing a layer of the skin. So it kind of goes step by step. In the jar, start by placing Kix cereal at the bottom to represent the subcutaneous layer or the fatty layer. We haven't got there yet. And then on top of the Kix, you add the M&Ms, and you just keep going according to step by step. And then when you're done, you have your layers of the skin here. So by looking at that, when you're done, you can eat it. So, or you could use something like a example would be the sunflower seeds, which are granules. You could maybe use a granola, that might work. The Stratum Spinosum with the pretzels, you could use a red licorice. The M&Ms that give the skin color, you could use Skittles. And then the Kix cereal is fatty layer. So the corn Chex, what could you use as corn Chex? You know, something along that to represent what it would be. And you can eat it when you're done, or you could draw it. I know one of your assignments is also drawing like the layers. You could draw that too. You know, you can get creative, but here is an example of something that you can go by, and that's where you find it. All right, so if we go back to our dermal layer, we don't see it, we don't touch it, we don't ever have anything to do with it. We just know it's there unless we cut it. This is why we know we've cut the dermal layer, because we're going to bleed. Okay, so this is often known as the dermis, the derma, the corneum, the cutis, or the true skin. This is where our live stuff is in our skin. Okay, it's 25 times thicker than the epidermis, and it's made up of connective tissue that gives your skin its elastic quality. So in this one, we only have two layers. We have our papillary dermis and we have our reticular dermis. Okay, so the papillary layer of the dermis is directly beneath the epidermis. This is all the blood vessels and capillaries and stuff are all there. It has these finger-like projections that extend to the epidermis to nourish the skin. And it has these tactile corpuscles, which is responsible for us feeling touch. Okay, we're gonna feel this touch. They're located, let's see, the dermal touch found within the dermal papillae, which consists of nipple-like extensions of the dermal layer into the epidermis. They appear as epidermal or papillary ridges and are located at the base of the hair follicles. Okay. So what do you need to know about that? You need to know that you have tactile corpuscles that make us feel touch, and then it has a lot of blood vessels and a lot of capillaries in it. And it has those finger-like or nipple-like things that give us nourishment. When we get to the reticular dermis, this is the lower layer of the dermis. This is right above the subcutaneous level. This contains collagen and elastin that provides skin with strength and flexibility. This is where your sweat glands and your oil glands, your sudoriferous glands and your sebaceous glands are found. That's oil and sweat. This is where you're going to find all the sensory nerve endings and receptors, some more blood vessels, your erector pili muscles. Erector pili muscles are the muscles that are attached to the hair follicles that are responsible for giving you goosebumps, okay, or chills. And then this is where you find a major portion of the hair follicle. So our sudoriferous gland or our sweat gland, it is not attached to anything. It's just down there in our dermis. It's a coil-like, tube-like duct opening. So it's a duct gland. It's on the surface of the skin that forms our sweat pore. Purpose of sweating is to help control and regulate body temperature. It helps excrete the waste, and it also helps create that acid mantle on our skin. Okay, that's the purpose of our sweat glands.
Is hair bulb and follicle the same thing?
Hair bulb and follicle? No. The follicle is like the tube-like pocket that the hair grows out of, and the hair bulb is at the bottom where it's like when you plant those bulbs that go into the ground and they grow out to be like flowers. So the hair bulb is like the beginning of our hair itself. If you look at this bottom picture down here where this little red and blue line goes into the bottom of the hair there, that's the bulb area there, and then the hair grows out of it. The hair grows out of it. Now, attached to the hair follicle, if you look over here on the side where the sebaceous gland is, that's attached to your hair follicle. What that is that's your oil gland, right? And that's like a little
Oil
sac.
socket, right?
Yeah, it's an oil gland. So it's like a little sac, and that oil gland fills up with oil that it dumps out onto the hair. And then from the hair, it travels out to the top of the skin to mix with the sweat that's adjacent to it and all the dead skin cells up there to form our acid mantle. So it's really complex of all the stuff that it does. I mean, that's a lot for it to do, right? So this acid mantle prevents grime and dirt from entering into the epidermis and prevents skin from drying and chapping. So, I mean, there's a lot of people from certain times in their life that have, disorders of the oil glands or disorders of the sweat glands. There's even disorders of hair follicles, so all of these things can have something that can go wrong with them, but, this is how it's made to work. Maybe someone doesn't produce enough oil, like myself. My skin does not produce enough oil. So I always feel like I'm a little bit drier than what I should be because my skin just doesn't produce oil. Unfortunately, I wish I produced a little bit more. And then some people's skin produce a lot of oil, especially like around the nose area or the chin or the forehead, a lot of people, because there's more oil glands found there also. So a lot of people have more shine to their skin because they're producing more oil in those areas. Okay. So now we have our subcutaneous layer. Our subcutaneous layer is basically fat. Okay, it's made of a tissue. Fat is called adipose tissue. It's below your dermal layer. It gives our body cushion. It's shock absorber for our bones. It supports the blood vessels and nerve endings, gives the body contour and shape, provides a reservoir for food and water, and it is composed of fat or loose connective tissue. Okay, so that's our subcutaneous layer. Okay, so in our subcutaneous layer, the tissue there, it also has blood vessels, sensory organs, and nerves. Okay, and below that, you've got down to your bone. So you're in all of your skin. Okay, so we have our epidermis, which is our outermost layer of our skin, composed of 5 layers. Each one of those layers has a specific function. Then we go down to our dermis. Dermis has 2 layers. Again, each one of those layers provides a specific function. And the main thing in the dermis is that's the live layer. So if anyone ever asks you what layer does, everything, you have blood vessels, it's the dermis. Everything live is in the dermis. Then we have our subcutaneous layer or our fat tissue, and that also has a specific function. So those are the layers of the skin that we need to know about. Skin pigmentation and sunscreen. It's real important to understand how your skin gets pigmentation, so you can understand how sunscreen works. And yes, everyone, I don't care what color your skin is, you need sunscreen. Okay. Melanin producing cells, the cells that produce our color, are called melanocytes, and they're located in the basal level of the epidermis. The melanin is distributed through all epithelial cells and forms a protective barrier from the penetration of ultraviolet rays. So just like in our hair, our skin has the same type of melanin, black, with brown or black, which is known as eumelanin, and red and yellow, which is known as pheomelanin. The type of melanin produced is determined by the type of melanin present, goes along with like your heritage, you know, your genes, your ancestry. Right. So when we talk about this, studies show that 90% of all wrinkles are caused by excess exposure to the sun and only 10% by the natural aging process. So if you never went outside, what would you look like? You never saw the light of day, besides kind of unhealthy, what would you look like, right? Tanning accelerates melanin to produce, which is the product of the UV rays. So sunscreen helps keep skin from the ultraviolet rays. Okay, so it says try to keep out of the sun between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. You know, that's kind of like skin's supposed to be the hottest when, right? So how does sun protection work? Well, SPF, sun protection factor. And I know that's a test question. What does SPF mean? Sun protection factor of at least 30. Reapply approximately every 2 hours, wear protective clothing, use caution near surfaces such as water that can reflect sun's damaging rays. Okay, so here's how these things work. Let's say I go out in the sun and I burn in about 15 minutes. If I put an SPF of 30, I can go out in the sun 15 times 30. Okay, so that's going to give me what, 45, 15, 45, 30, 450 minutes or something. I don't even, don't ask me to do math. It's Monday, Tuesday for me, Monday, whatever. So yeah, it was too confusing in my mind. I just said, forget it, whatever. Okay. So it times it by that amount. But again, you have to think, if you have the physical sunscreen versus the chemical sunscreen, did you put this on 30 minutes before you went out into the sun? Because a lot of them are going to tell you what versus the physical versus the chemical. If you are absorbing it, right, it takes 30 minutes for that chemical to mix with your skin and become active. So a lot of times people say, oh, the sunscreen doesn't work. I kept applying it and I kept applying it and I still got sunburned. If you wait till you get to the sun to apply it, you might, because it takes 30 minutes for it to actually start to work with your body. Again, water, sweat, and just being out there for a long time, frequent applications may be necessary to help with this. Even people with the darkest skin are starting to get skin cancers now. You know, the whole pollution, ozone layer, all that kind of stuff. So it is really important to wear sunscreen while you're out there. You know, overexposure, damage the skin, burning, peeling, premature aging, freckles, even skin cancers. It happens, right? So even though dark skin has more melanin, well, let me rephrase that. Light and dark skin don't differ in the number of melanocytes that they contain, but they differ in the type of melanin. So like darker skin, of course, has more eumelanin than lighter skin. So that makes the difference where a lot of people think just because their skin is darker, yes, it does have a more effective barrier to the damaging rays, but you can still get those damaging rays, right? And when you get sunburned, it usually turns red. I've seen people with really dark skin be sunburned. It's not really so red as it is dry and tight and itchy. And, you know, I'm told it has that whole burning sensation, just like if you had a sunburn, but you don't turn like that hot pink if your skin is darker in color. So we want to make sure that all skin needs protection, like Everybody, I don't care who you are, you need sunscreen daily. And a lot of lotions that they make, like skin moisturizers, have a sunscreen built in them. And even if you're not out in the sun on a daily basis, just driving, in your car, the UV rays, get the one arm, in the summertime, one arm's always darker than the other, right? Because you're driving, even that one arm could potentially have a skin cancer later on down the road. And the damage that you do when you're younger to your skin doesn't usually show up until you're older. So we want to make sure that we can make sure that we use this. So what do we have? We have the American Academy of Dermatology recommends that you apply a sunscreen at least 30 minutes and reapply every 2 hours. Wear protective clothing. Use caution near water. Protect children by keeping them out of the sun. Beginning at 6 months of age, minimizing the risk of applying sunscreen. Children younger than 6 months should not be exposed to the sun since their skin is highly sensitive to the chemical ingredients in sunscreen as well as to the sun's rays. Shade and protective clothing are the best way to protect infants from the sun. So there you go. So also they're making clothing like shorts and stuff like that that have sunscreen in them now, which I think is really cool. I don't know how they do that, but they do. So, I mean, if we're talking about this, what role does skin play in a barber service? So you can rehydrate the skin, you can renew a face treatment, you can give them a chemical peel, and you can even do an anti-aging treatment. Shaving, you're out there shaving, you should at least know how to take care of the skin or how to recognize different things in the skin if you're going to be shaving, because shaving could be an irritant, right? You could be causing some damage to someone's skin or making them have some, unwanted reaction by not knowing the type of skin that the person has and how to treat or work on that type of skin, just like with hair. Doing chemical services, you need to know like the right chemical, or you need to know how to treat the skin correctly. So when we talk about this, we talk about 4 basic types of skin: dry, oily, normal, and combination. Now within those, you can have dry sensitive skin, you can have dry mature skin, you can have oily sensitive skin, you could have normal sensitive skin, you could have normal aging skin. All of this falls under like a combination skin, right? Because who has just one type of skin? Not hardly anybody that I know. I don't think I even know anyone that has one type of skin. Most people fall underneath that. So when we talk about dry skin, okay, so how do you see it? Well, sometimes it's peeling or flaking. You know that that's dry. You can even have oily skin that's dry, believe it or not, because you have 2 types of dry skin. You have oil dry and you have moisture dry. The skin might look kind of cracking. It might feel tight. It might be skin that chaps easily. Usually there's not a lot of blemishes in there, not very prone to acne, but going to be more prone to wrinkles. Okay, so we've got oil dry skin, which lacks sebaceous activity, which is what I have. And then we have moisture dry skin, which lacks water. Okay, so if someone says they have dry skin, find out how much water they drink. Do you drink enough of water every day? That could be usually the number 1. But the treatment to this is just give them moisture. Okay, so that means like during a shaving service, if someone has really super dry skin, you might want to put some oil on there. That oil is going to help maintain that moisture barrier when you put the shave gel or the shave cream on, so that it's not so scrapey across their skin. Okay, so now you have oily skin. Oily skin is going to have a shiny look. Now, a lot of people get shine on their forehead and their nose and their chin, but not so much on their cheeks. Usually oily skin is like thicker skin, or it has like a rougher texture. Sometimes you can see blackheads. Sometimes you'll see enlarged pores. So most of it, like I said, is on that T-zone, forehead, nose, and chin. In younger people, oily skin is prone to acne. But a lot of people in their 30s now are getting acne, a lot of acne just due to stress. Okay, so keep in mind that you want to balance that out, which means that you may when after a shave, you might put like an oil control lotion on those T-zones, or maybe a mask for the oil, something. Those black masks were real popular for a while. I haven't seen them out there lately though. Normal skin, okay, it's rare, yes. Just fresh, healthy skin. You just want to maintain that. You want to keep their skin nice and healthy. And then we have combination skin, which is the most common. A lot of people think combination skin is going to be oily to dry, but it could be other combinations too. But usually dryness is going to be in the cheek or along the jawline or the hairline, where the oily is going to be more in the T-zone. Okay, so you may need 2 different products there to stabilize that oil or to help add moisture to those dry areas. You may need, 2 different types, but those are the most common skin types out there for sure. Okay, so true or false? Dermatology is the study of skin, its structures, functions, diseases, and treatments.
True.
Mhm. The skin is the second largest organ of the body.
False.
False, yeah. The function of the skin includes sensation, heat regulation, absorption, protection, excretion, and remember shapes. So it's an S word.
Seclusion.
Secretion, yeah.
Secretion.
3 main layers of the skin are the subcutaneous, epidermis, and so remember, that's how I kind of remember it, because the epidermis is the outer layer. So the inner layer is just the dermis. And, epidermis has 2 in there. And then subcutaneous, if you're like, I don't know, I always think of like the earth, I'm going to the
Uppermost.
layer of the earth. What was that?
Is it the uppermost?
The epidermis is the uppermost, yeah. And then the dermis is the middle. And then the subcutaneous is the bottom. The skin layer that has 5 layers of cells with differing characteristics. So the 5 layers, which one had 5? That one would be the epidermis. Okay. Sweat is produced by a gland known as sweat. So I could remember that there was a sudoriferous gland and there was sebum, right? Sudoriferous and sebum both start with an S. You got oil and sweat. But to remember them, I don't know if this is, I remember things a weird way, but sudoriferous to me, I would always put like odoriferous in front of that, because sometimes sweat kind of stinks. So that's how I remember that. I know it's kind of a weird roundabout way, but that worked for me. So sweat is produced by the sudoriferous glands. The layer of skin that acts as a shock absorber to protect the bones is known as, so that would be our subcutaneous layer. The American Academy of Dermatology recommends using a sunscreen with an SPF of at least 30. From a barber's point of view, the surface of the skin falls into 4 types. Dry, oily, normal signs such as peeling and flaking would be dry. My lips feel dry today. 30 combination dry. Look at, I got them all right. Okay, so remember absorption, remember shapes: sensation, heat, absorption, protection, excretion, secretion. Okay, remember we have the epidermis, the dermal or dermis, and the subcutaneous, 3 layers. Okay. Remember that melanin is what gives us color. Sunscreen comes in various SPFs, and we want to go at least to 30. And then we have 4 types of basic skin: dry, oily, normal, and combination. Okay, so that's not too hard to remember. But yeah, so tomorrow we're going to go into these skin diseases and disorders. Oh my gosh, there's so many of these though. But yeah, and you got to know them. So we're definitely going to go into those. And that's it. You guys have any questions? No questions? Okay, so who do I got left? I lost Ruben. Oh no, Ruben's still here. Well, turn your cameras back on, guys. I gotta see you here.
I'm here.
So I lost this one.
Yeah, we've all been here since 9.
Not all of you, and don't even go because you came in.
No, say something. No, say.
Uh-huh.
Don't look at the recording though.
I already know. Okay. So all right, no questions. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Do your homework. Don't forget to text in. Let us know that you're doing stuff. Okay. All right. Have a good one. Bye.